My name is Paul Luna, and you're tuned into F&B Lunacy. I am here today with Edie Weintraub of edieeverywhere.com. Edie, tell us about yourself.
Well, I have been in Atlanta for the last 22 years and have enjoyed being part of the restaurant landscape as it relates to real estate and site selection for the last 15 years. And seeing small businesses grow is something I'm very passionate about. Having grown up in New Jersey, I brought my work ethic and my drive and my passion for people with me. And I have had the honor of working with some amazing local restaurateurs from the likes of Stacy Eames, the founder of Highland Bakery, to Lucero Obregon, who she and her brother own Zocalo, to continuing that path and meeting a lot of amazing entrepreneurs who are invested in seeing the city of Atlanta be on the map in terms of a food and beverage scene.
Do you work with the real estate agent or do you work with the tenants or mixed?
Absolutely. Great question. For the last 15 years, I have only represented the restaurateurs. And so I am on their team, making sure that they are getting what they need out of looking for spaces and making sure that they're finding the right locations that matches with their brand and the type of experience they want to offer. So for me, only representing the restaurateurs.
Are there any developers out there going into inner city that are actually improving the community?
Yes, there are. Well, I'm going to speak specifically to Atlanta and to two developers, one that has already been nationally, internationally recognized in regards to the adaptive reuse of the old Sears catalog building that is now known as Ponce City Market. So Jamestown is the team that's here in Atlanta is a collection of a lot of local successful folks that also had a vision to see new soul in old buildings. So Michael Phelps is on board as the president of Jamestown, and he and his team, Matthew Brovnan, also came together to, spent 3 years in completely transforming and renovating Ponce City Market, which was a big undertaking, but they were very thoughtful and engaged the community along the entire process in doing tours for just the public and making sure that they knew that they were part of what was happening there. So when they announced that they were going to be doing some residential, there was a list of 1,000 people waiting for 250 units. And on top of that, I think they were also, the timing coincided very nicely in that the Beltline came together and started on that side of the city. And so between the adaptive reuse of Ponce City Market and then the Beltline, that area has just been explosive in terms of growth. One that I'm very excited to see how everything comes together is the husband and wife team that moved here from LA. They are movie producers and they purchased the property known as Pullman Yards. But given that everything nowadays is being called yards, they said maybe we should change the name a little bit and address maybe calling it Pratt Pullman District. So they've modified the name a little bit, but those buildings and the property have an amazing story in that they go back to the early 1900s, and that's where the Pullman porters, which started in Chicago, would work on the trains and fix them. And the Pullman porters were early, social media people because they were the ones who were carrying the newspapers throughout the country on the trains and allowing people to be up to date with the news. So I'm so excited to see what becomes of that property. Their background's in film, so I know that there'll be a big component of entertainment there, but of course, everybody loves to eat, and the fact that they're from LA, their palates are very diverse. And where this property is located, it's very distant from Buford Highway, where there's this international, bouquet of cuisine. So I think they're going to be very cognizant to bring, more diversity of food and beverage as well as entertainment, but also because of where it's located, it is not on the Beltline, but it is proximate to a lot of spurs off the Beltline, but it is in the heart of an amazing residential community that continues to grow. So very family oriented, very artistic, not far from Emory University, not far from downtown Decatur. So I'm very excited about that project as well.
How can a real estate developer and a restaurant owner, even retail owner, work together to make sure that there is a long-term relationship? Is it possible for such a thing?
It's questionable. I do think that there are owners. I'm trying to think. There's a couple of owners that have property in downtown Decatur, and because again, giving back to the community, they're entrenched in the community. I think that they came into their property for a low basis, such that it would allow them to then not have to charge too much to the tenants. I think the challenge comes with folks that are looking at purchasing property today after it's already had tenants in it, and so of course those folks then want to look to make a profit, so the rent that they were at when they purchased it needs to be higher later down the road. So I do think there's going to be an incredible reset.
Where do you see the retail market heading, or the commercial real estate for restaurants headed?
The US is over malled and it's over retailed for the amount of people that need to shop.
Do you have any advice for chefs or business owners about leasing?
I could go on for days.
You have the court.
Yeah, no, I think that, I'll talk specifically about a story. I'll tell two stories actually. One story is about a restaurant that I read about, and I love anytime I travel to a new city for work or pleasure or whatnot. I try to make sure to set aside an extra day just to explore the city and get to know the people and the neighborhoods and whatnot. So one trip that I had, I went to Orlando. And I had read about this restaurant that was in an area I would describe as kind of like Buford Highway in Atlanta. It was a little bit of automotive, but also a nice fusion of a lot of different like Asian cuisines. And I found this restaurant called Hawkers, Hawkers. And I secret shopped them a couple of times on a couple trips to Orlando. And then finally I said, you know what? I think they've got something special. Everyone has been enamored with pizza and with burgers and fried chicken, and I want something different. And so I think it was the third time I was there, I reached out to the owners. And I said, I think you have something special. I've, come into your restaurant a handful of times. I love it. I know it's probably a little bit before you make it to Atlanta, but there's no time like the present, and I really want to start the conversation. So I sat down with them. They had already been looking at a space in Jacksonville. So to grow in Florida a little bit more, absolutely understand just for access and operations. And I said, well, I really, again, think you have something special. I would love to work with you when you're ready for more outside of Florida. Let's stay in touch. So just like gardening, planting seeds, I love people and I love keeping them apprised as to what's going on in Atlanta. So it took them about 3 years. So I'm in this for the long haul, right? I believe in you, and stayed in touch. I had an opportunity to go and visit their Jacksonville location when they opened in St. Pete. I went to that location as well. And then when they were looking to do their fourth location, they said, okay, Edie, we've done these first 3 locations via friends and family money. But we're looking to raise money for the next 7 locations. And I said, great, I've got people to introduce you to, let's go. And I really, I told my husband, I said, honey, I really believe in this, restaurant group and these folks. And it was 4 childhood friends that started it. So they had known each other for a very long time. And I said, honey, I really want to invest in this restaurant. And he goes, Edie, we don't invest in restaurants. That's a really difficult investment. I said, well, it's really important to me, right? These are my clients and I believe in them. And I think that it's the right thing to do to invest with them. And we went to the investor dinner at that 4th location. And one of my main investors, I really wanted to introduce my husband to. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, was so busy that night meeting a ton of people, and he didn't get to meet this main investor. And it turns out the next day, my husband flies home and he gets upgraded. Who does he sit next to on the airplane? The main investor. So he gets off the plane and he calls me and he tells me what happened. And I said, so what do you think? He goes, yes, we can invest. And so, again, it's one of those things that I took the time and I did all my homework and I kept in touch with them. And, I really just introduced them to Atlanta when they first came in. I said, we're not looking at any specific sites. I want to show you what I feel is consistent with where all of your other locations you've chosen, because I now know Orlando, Jacksonville, Neptune Beach, St. Pete. I know where you've chosen to locate the restaurants based on the community that you want to serve. So let me just show you around Atlanta. I need 2 days. And, from there, you'll tell me, what you feel. I want to introduce you to other restaurateurs because I don't want you to base your choice off of what I'm telling you. I want to give you all the tools so that you can make the best choice for you. And so I had introduced them to probably 4 other owners in similar neighborhoods that we were looking, and they then had their own conversations. So I'm really proud to have worked with them to help them, meet other investors to help them raise money to grow. And now we're at 8 locations and moving north into the DC Mid-Atlantic market. So that's a success story that I'm very proud of, and I'm so excited to have been part of the team and so proud as to what they're doing. Another story as it relates to advice for restaurateurs and leasing and finding spaces is there's a restaurant group that is in Savannah. And when I met them, they had about 4 locations in Savannah. And I said, again, guys, I think you have something special. If you are ever considering Atlanta, please let me know. I would love to work with you. And unfortunately, they came to Atlanta. And I think in this instance, they were wooed by a very big landlord. And the landlord said, look at this space, we'll give you all this money, blah, blah, blah. And when I finally found out, unfortunately, they didn't call me. But when I finally found out that they were building out their space, I went to meet them. And I said, guys, I'm really disappointed. Why didn't you call me? Not that I, absolutely need to get paid. It's just, I want to see you successful. I want to see you come into the city of Atlanta and not only do one, but do a handful of locations. Tell me why you picked this location. And they said, oh, well, we met with so-and-so and they give us this and they give us that. And I said, I'm so sorry, guys. This is not the right location for you. This has no similarities whatsoever to the types of locations that you chose in Savannah or the people that, in the community that you serve in Savannah. I really wish, again, you would have called me because we should be in this neighborhood, and this neighborhood, and this neighborhood. And they've already rebranded the concept, and they took just a really large space, and there was actually construction that happened above them. And so I said, well, just in case, did you negotiate such that the construction above you had to be done before you opened for business or before you started paying rent? And they said, well, no. I said, well, because you guys didn't have someone protecting your interests and looking out for you. And of course, what happened? As the construction was going on above them, they hit a water line. Water came down into their gorgeous brand new restaurant, and they had to shut down and then repair it. So I do really think it's important that everyone, just as you look to buy a house or sell a house, you have an advocate that's on your team that knows the language of the community so that you are protecting yourself. Fitness, food, and entertainment are my 3 pillars that I focus on.
Would you consider yourself a lunatic?
Honestly, I think we all have to be a little edgy and fun and crazy. Because it's interesting, and I love that you're cracking up too. I had worked in the restaurant industry, and I think part of the reason why I returned to it on the real estate side is that there's just this pulse and this energy that you cannot find anywhere else. And so I'm sitting here getting chills just talking about it, because the types of folks that, enjoy being around others and enjoy creating things for others and seeing the expression on their face after they've had a bite of, tuna tartare or whatnot. I just think that's something that there's pleasure in being around others that I think we all have to be a little, a little crazy to be in this industry.